Afternoon. It's Celeste of Astrology by Celeste. I'm here for a cosmic conversation with Sarah Michelle Boes about the rising sign. Welcome, everyone. Sarah is joining. Hey, Mary, good to see you there. And Anna, forever. Nice to see you, Seneflu, and everyone. Hi, Sarah.
Hey,
How are you?
good. How are you?
I am doing well. Let me adjust my volume. It got really high.
No, you're good.
Yeah. It's nice to meet you.
So nice to meet you too.
So you're a chief nursing officer and,
Yes, I'm
and
previous chief nursing officer and entrepreneur.
exactly. Yes. Why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
My name is Sarah Michelle Boes, and the last 5 years of my life have been a wild ride since COVID, in the sense that overnight I became an entrepreneur. I went on to sell that business just a couple of years into creating this nurse practitioner based test prep business out of my own anxiety and needs. And then I worked within the bigger company that acquired mine and served as their chief nursing officer. And last year I was going through a lot of seasons of change, as is life, and I ended up finding astrology. I'm pretty new to astrology, but I actually think that's a really unique viewpoint, and it's a really cool place to start because I like showing people you don't have to be an expert for it to be useful.
Oh, absolutely. That does make sense. Interesting. So you said you became an entrepreneur overnight. Explain
Yes.
that. Being a nurse, did you decide you had to get out in the field, or what led to that overnight thing with
There's
COVID?
some really magical timing, but essentially what happened was during COVID, I was wrapping up nurse practitioner school, and obviously the world was shutting down around us. And
Mm.
I had so much, and I do mean so much anxiety about taking this really high stakes exam because essentially you spend all this money and all this time in school, but if you never pass the board exam, you never get to practice.
Mm.
And then we had to add the layer of COVID. So I would like show up to testing centers and they would be closed. And you wouldn't know that was going to happen until you showed up. So there's all this like anticipatory anxiety too. But after I ended up passing my exam, I was really, it was just like this light bulb moment. I was sitting in the parking lot waiting for my friend to come out from the exam. And I was like, I love teaching. And really, that's all I've ever wanted to do. But what if I created my own review course for this exam and I shared it with my classmates? And so the following weekend, over Memorial Day, I made a 3 hour course on Zoom. And I put it out to my classmates. I said, hey guys, this is kind of my techniques, like anxiety wise, content wise, to pass this big exam. Tell me what you think. And later that week, I went on to start selling it for $15 for lifetime access to this 3 hour course. I mean, I was an entrepreneur, I had no baseline, no practice, no skills. And I ended up making $1,000 in a day. And I
Mm.
was, oh, I think there's something here. What if I made $1,000 every day? Within 8 months, the company had made $1 million. It was a wild turn of events. It was really, really cool.
What is your sun, moon, and rising?
Oh, yes, I am a Virgo sun. I
Um,
am an Aries moon, which really gets me going. And I'm a Sagittarius rising. It was so cool to learn I was Sagittarius rising because I felt like it lined up with how the business went and the speed and everything. It felt like everything clicked together when I found out I was Sagittarius rising.
what year did you launch that course?
It was in May of 2020.
May of 2020. So that was right when the South Node went into the sign of Sagittarius and the North
Mm-hmm.
Node into the sign of Gemini. So you scooped out your information from yourself in your first house with all your techniques and things. And then, boom, the North Node in your
Well,
seventh house. You got all these customers that were
I was
buying.
ready. Well, it was actually really cool. I was just looking back earlier, and there was an eclipse in Sagittarius in December of 2021. And that was actually within 2 days of meeting with the person who would eventually help me sell my business in 2022. It's really cool.
Absolutely. That was your Jupiter, Saturn in Aquarius story too, as
Mhm.
well as the
Yeah.
Sagittarius solar eclipse. Do you have anything in early Aquarius or
I
fixed
actually do
signs?
not. I think fixed sign wise, I do have a 12th house Scorpio stellium. So that I
Ah,
think also contributes to my intensity a little bit. But I have a
mhm.
whole lot of Virgo and then a whole lot of Scorpio.
Okay. So you're strategic as well
Mm.
as you could take the steps one by one and get stuff done. I love that.
Yeah,
So
I
cool.
love all of my Virgos so much. People are always like, I don't like this or I don't like that. And I even have Mars and Cancer in my eighth, and I really love that too. I can see in my life how I'm able to pivot that into something useful and meaningful for me. So I love all the parts of my chart.
Yeah, and so a planet being in the sign of its fall doesn't mean detriment and fault are not bad. They just mean you
Yeah.
need to learn how to use the energy in different ways. It just isn't like a natural flow with how you use
Yeah.
your Mars energy. And you probably have learned through time where when you're emotionally really
Mm.
passionate about something and put your energy into it and maybe even exhaust yourself or overwhelm
Mm.
yourself at times, that it brings success. So it's
Yeah,
just
1000%. I
it's not.
think having Mars and Cancer in the eighth is really great for advocacy work. A lot of what my business was centered around was advocating for people's mental health as they took the
Mhm.
exam. And that's what a lot of what I do with astrology today is like, how do I advocate for people to better work with astrology to help their mental health, make them feel better about their lives, have more self awareness. It's really cool.
And it's like Mars and Cancer can be the mother who puts herself in danger to protect the
Mhm.
children, even
Yeah,
though Mars' principle is supposed to be about you protecting yourself. So, yeah, that's a great example that you gave. Well, I love that you shared that story because I think it's inspirational to people that you did something where you just had an idea,
just
took
did
the
it.
action, put it together, put it out there, and it became successful and led you into different places in your life. And that's that Sagittarius
Oh,
enthusiasm.
yes.
Rather than just like trying to make it perfect or trying to do this or that, you just did it. That is so cool. I love
I
it.
think it's my Virgo because my Virgo does want to perfect sometimes, but that's kind of a nuance of the different layers and figuring out how to work
Yeah.
with. But yeah, that idea wouldn't leave me alone. I was like, I just have to do this thing and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And then
And
meanwhile, and then it just exploded.
well, I'm sure people thought it was spectacular, but you being a Virgo, I bet afterwards you're like, well, I should have added this.
Oh my goodness. I literally just a couple weeks ago, I saw some of the very first slides I had put in the first
Mhm.
$15 course, and they were made on Microsoft PowerPoint. This was before I even knew Canva existed. I thought they looked okay at the time, but I was like, these are not great.
Well, what people need is the information,
Yeah,
regardless.
yeah, for sure.
And I
For
bet
sure.
it's with the South Node's in Virgo now. So you're going back and looking at something
Oh,
you
yes.
created before. Yeah, wonderful. So we're going to talk about the rising sign and how do you dialogue the rising sign to people?
What I often tell people is it kind of gets this really bad rap as being the mask you wear. But your rising sign is a part of you and it's a piece of you and it's your filter and your perspective on the world. And I think like once you can understand what is my perspective on the world and how do things fall in my life, then it becomes a really good mental health tool too.
Ah, so using your rising sign for mental health. I love that. So why don't we go through the different ones?
And
Uh,
I,
uh,
I think I see a comment too about someone. Hello.
I really appreciated your story, and it's relatable. And Meg is a super Taurus with
Mm,
OCD, and has to tell themselves out loud, it doesn't have to be perfect. You
yes.
just have to, at times, you just have to do it.
I have diagnosed OCD, which
Ah,
is interesting thinking about all the things that live in my 12th house, like the depth and intensity there. But astrology has been so helpful in all the ways. It's just a sense of like, okay, I can look ahead. When I looked at this week a month ago and I was like, okay, like, is this the day I should go on astrology by Celeste? Because I was like feeling a little anxious, a little nervous, right? I was like, the beginning of the week looks like it could be a little rough. Like I'm going through an eighth house moon transit. I'm in a moon ruled year. I might not be feeling my best. I knew the eclipse was coming this weekend, which is lots of sudden endings, sudden beginnings, a little bit of
yeah.
chaos. But when I looked at today, the moon and Venus are sitting right on my natal sun in the 10th house. And I was like, actually, this looks like a really nice time to go on this live stream.
The moon and Venus in your 10th house is a perfect time. It's a goddess day when they meet. This is really a great energy. Can you share, just before we go into more of the rising signs, a few tools you use to help yourself manage OCD? And you can bring in the astrology or just help people who have experience this?
So, from a zoomed out view, what OCD is, a lot of people assume it's hand washing, and that's like one iteration, one version of OCD. But what OCD actually is at its core is an intolerance of uncertainty. And for example, when people are washing their hands, they want that certainty that they don't have germs on their hands and they're not going to get sick or whatever it is that they're worried about. And so for me, a lot of my OCD, before I knew what it was, I just thought it was big anxiety, but it was like, if I do X, Y, or Z, then something bad will happen. It was kind of this magical thinking sphere. And I know for me, astrology wise, like when I go through a 12th house moon transit, for example, and the moon is in Scorpio, I'm way more likely to have those intrusive thoughts, intrusive images, want to do compulsions, those sorts of things. Same thing with an 8th house moon transit. My birthday was at the end of August, so it was my first 8th house moon transit in a moon world year. And I was like, I don't know how this is going to go exactly, but I mean, as soon as the moon went into Cancer earlier this week, I was having all these intrusive thoughts. It's just good information and good data for me. So that way, when I'm having a lot of thoughts, I'm like, it doesn't mean I'm going down a downward spiral or I'm relapsing with my OCD. It just means I'm having a tough couple of days. But when the moon moves into Leo, I'm going to feel like a better human just because of the setup of my chart. And so I think OCD wise, outside of like looking at 12th or 8th house moon transits, those sorts of things, in general, a lot of it is exposure therapy. So I tell people about OCD, like it's literally facing your fears head on and realizing you don't die in the process. And so you're like, if I do this and something bad's going to happen. So what you have to do is go do the thing, realize something bad doesn't always happen. For me, that got tricky because before I knew I had OCD and I was pregnant with my daughter at the time, I was like, if I announce I'm pregnant, something bad will happen. Or like, if I have a baby shower, something bad will happen. I had a work conference and I literally, like, I was 34 weeks pregnant at the time. Like, there was no way to avoid people knowing I was pregnant. I had to do the announcement and do the things. My friends at the conference and my employees threw me a baby shower, which was very sweet. But then we found out at 36 weeks pregnant that my daughter was actually going to be born with 4 heart defects, just unexpectedly out of the blue. And so for me, and the way my brain worked at the time and the way I was wired, I was like, oh, I caused this. This is my fault. OCD, you can't really logic with. It's not rational. And so I'm a nurse practitioner. I know that her heart formed when she was 6 weeks old, but my anxiety was telling me otherwise, which led to me getting an OCD diagnosis. Exposure therapy, facing all your fears, realizing you don't die. My OCD therapist, who I still work with today, is always like, if you're not doing compulsions, then you haven't relapsed. You can have all the crazy intrusive thoughts, but as long as you're not actively doing the compulsions, you're in a good spot.
Is your daughter doing okay?
She has a beautiful little Leo son. She just turned 3 in August. And I love telling people she's the healthiest she's ever been right now. So we've got some gap time before her next surgery. She's also a Scorpio rising, so some intensity for her, but that is her life.
Yeah, that's part of her story, being a Scorpio rising. Well, thank you for
Absolutely.
sharing that. I think that really helps people to hear. OCD is intolerance of uncertainty. So then you're doing things or feeling thoughts. How do you dialogue the 8th house and the 12th house to people? Because that makes sense where that's when it's triggered the most.
Yeah, I think for 8th house for me is all like grief and fear. And, there's a lot of
Worry.
transformation that comes along 8th house too. And then the 12th house feels darker for me in the sense like I'm having intrusive thoughts. The thoughts themselves are darker. And like I feel like less of myself and I have less capacity for things. Whenever I do mini chart readings, I'll tell people who know nothing about astrology, I'm like, here's your big 3. And here's kind of the theme of your year with annual perfections, because I love annual perfections. But the last thing I tell them, just because I don't want to overwhelm them, is here's your next 3 12th house moon transits. And you see how you feel. And you see, like, did I feel like my best that day? Did I not feel like my best? Because what I do in my Google calendar is if I'm having a 12th house moon transit, it's in my Google calendar. I don't overbook myself that day, or I don't do something like this on that day because I won't be able to show up in the way I want to show up.
Ah, that's so good. Yeah, I teach a moon course, and what I have people do is learn through experience of their different
Yes.
transits through the different houses. For me, Pisces moons, I'm just like, oh, la la la
You're like, no
la. It's
thanks.
my ninth house, but I really need to lighten my schedule up, Billy.
It's
actually do.
beautiful to know that about yourself because then
Mhm.
you overextend and you don't do things you don't want to do.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. Oh, well, great. Well, thanks for sharing that nugget of advice that you give to people. I've never thought of doing that. I like that. Telling people if you see something, telling them to be aware with the dates. I'm going to add that to my repertoire.
I had a Libra rising purchase a birth chart reading this week, which is so cool. I
Uh-huh.
do a PDF and I sent it to them last night and I said, do not open this right now. You're about to have a 12th house eclipse going on and you are in a 12th house season until Monday. I love telling people about 12th house seasons too, because that's
Uh-huh.
been really helpful for me. Just like reflecting back, I always thought Scorpio season, I had seasonal affective disorder. I did not have seasonal affective disorder.
It's
It's just Scorpio season for me. I told her last night, open this on Monday when the sun moves into Libra and we're out of this eclipse. I mean, we're not really out of it. The energy's still there, but you know what I mean. Mhm.
you're just very intuitive as well with all that 12th house
Oh, yes.
energy. I
I
wonder
love
if that you
all the
just
12th house topics.
you come up with things and bring them into like using the astrology, but
Yeah.
knowing how to help people with things. That's very cool. Okay, why don't we just give a little bit for each of the signs? Is that okay with the rising
Yeah.
signs? Yeah, why don't we start with Aries? What do you tell people who have an Aries rising? Just a few nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah, I think with Aries rising, you push forward, you want quick results. I feel like I know Aries more intimately because I am an Aries moon and I also like
Hmm.
the quick results and to move fast. So I think where people get trapped as an Aries rising mentally is when you're forced to slow down, or if maybe your anger, your emotions don't really have a good outlet. And so, self care wise, with an Aries rising, physical movement. I think if you can move your body, I mean, they're a fire sign, but if you can move your body and also reframe rest as a strategy, I think Aries risings don't really like to slow down necessarily, but rest is its own strategy and it reboots you so you can do all those things that you want to do too.
That's great advice. I'm an Aries moon too.
Cool.
Movement is so necessary for that energy.
Cancer rising, right?
I'm a Taurus sun, Aries moon, Cancer rising.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's fun.
And what about Taurus?
Taurus is so much more grounded down than Aries. It's just a totally different vibe. And they really like that stability. They do not like being rushed, or at least that is my experience with Taurus rising. For them, anxiety starts to pop up when life feels unpredictable or uncertain, or their sense of security is shaken, like all those sorts of things. So I think with Taurus rising, especially, like any way you can like ground yourself down. Some people like time in nature. They are an earth sign. Some people do not. I'm a Virgo that doesn't super, love being in nature, but Taurus rising, I think any kind of clarity, certainty that you can achieve, but also thinking back to me having OCD, the acceptance of my life is nothing is ever certain, never is exactly certain. But the closer you can get to that, I think the better overall that they feel.
Managing through change can be very unsettling for a
This
Taurus
is hard.
rising, but they've all just the last 7 years they've been dealing with Uranus through their first house. So they have
Brave
learned to
souls.
adapt to change and have a whole new perspective. What a gift to
Yeah.
Taurus people to have Uranus come before through Taurus before this change, this like huge world changes that we're
Oh,
experiencing. How about Gemini?
I always have a special place for Geminis. I think it's gonna have all the Virgo in my chart. I just love a Mercury ruled sign.
Hmm.
Geminis, they want to process through conversation. And I think where Gemini risings can sometimes get into trouble is overthinking. And if it's not overthinking, it gets into this scattered energy category. But I think when you're doing either of those things, it makes you more stressed out. And so for them, if they could talk things out, and if you don't want to talk things out, maybe you're journaling or getting it out in some way. I also think it's really important for the mental health of a Gemini rising to give yourself variety without overcommitting. Overcommitting is its own problem, but as long as you've got some variety, some stimulation, and some spice, I think that's really healthy for them.
Yeah, and Gemini rules the lungs, so breath work can be really,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
helpful for Geminis as well. I think Gemini risings. Hmm.
And I think with Cancer rising, how do you feel as a Cancer rising yourself? What do you feel like are
Well,
your best self care strategies?
for me, following the moon and knowing where the moon
For sure.
is really helpful for me, and recognizing the different things where the moon's going through my chart. Water is,
Mm.
I love being in water, taking baths, showers, whatever. Using water to cleanse and calm down can be a wonderful thing. hmm Working
I
with oracle cards, tarot, especially if you go into, because it's a emotional, if you go into, if anything is coming up and it start getting into any kind of fear energy, it really helps to get perspective. Divination tools have really helped me as a Cancer rising.
I love divination tools for perspective, actually. Just having kind of like that third party view and lens on what you're going,
Mhm.
kind of the story that each person uniquely creates when they use tarot or oracle cards is so cool.
Yeah. So it's a cool sign to have, but the moon changing signs every 2.5 days.
It's a lot.
Allowing my moon, allowing to be in flow and
Yeah.
recognizing what comes up with yourself as the moon goes through the different signs and houses of your chart. Yeah,
Yeah,
having a chart ruler
I'm
changeable.
definitely learning that right now because being Sag rising, having Jupiter as my chart ruler, like Jupiter moves about once a year, but
Mhm.
being in this moon ruled year and it being an eighth house year for me, it's just a different experience already. What a gift it is to know, like, hey, I'm in a moon ruled year and like I'm
Yeah.
gonna need more capacity this year and more compassion for myself. Like that's such a beautiful thing.
How about Leo risings?
Oh, Leo risings. I love Leos. I mean, you're gonna hear me say every time, like, oh, I love Leos. I love Geminis. I love all the signs. I was at Apple earlier getting the new iPhone. I pre-ordered it, and he was like, "What are you doing with your day today?" And I was like, "Well, I'm actually going on an astrology live stream later, and I'm really excited." And he was like, "Well, I don't want to tell you my sign." He's like, "Nobody likes my sign," and I was like, "What?" And he was like, I'm a Scorpio. And I was like, I love Scorpios. I have so many Scorpios in my life. To me, there are really no bad signs. For Leo risings, like Leo risings in general, they need to express themselves. They usually like recognition depending upon other parts of their chart. And so I think low mood for them sets in when they feel overlooked or undervalued. They want to feel valued. And so also with a Leo rising, I think the ways that they can take care of themselves are creative outlets, any way they can play. But it's really about the people that they surround themselves with and having people in their lives that celebrate them and see them for who they are. I think they just need to be seen for who they are.
Yeah, and celebrate themselves too.
For sure.
Well, what can you do that lights you up just for
Mm-hmm.
yourself? Could be
Yeah.
something with people with that Leo rising and being okay with being in the spotlight can be,
It's his own skill set.
yeah, absolutely.
It's funny. I used to always say, I'm an introvert, I'm a Virgo, I'm an introvert, I'm a Virgo. And my astrology mentor, she was like, you're the most extroverted Virgo to have all that Virgo in the 10th house. She's like, you're
Yeah.
not an introvert. I was like, oh, okay.
And you're a Sag rising with an
Yeah.
Aries moon. You've got a lot of that.
A lot of extrovert energy.
Okay, what about Virgo rising? That's one of the more challenging rising signs.
I agree. I'll tell you some things I love about Virgo rising since it can be challenging. Virgos are very thoughtful and they're
Mhm.
observant and they're service oriented and like they know the things that people need, which is cool. But I think, stress very much manifests itself as worrying, overthinking, criticism. And it's not just people always think about criticism of others or criticism of things, but like criticism
Yeah.
of themselves too.
Yeah.
It's a very internal thing. When you're an unresourced Virgo, and I speak from my own experience, there is a lot of perfectionism that lives in there as well. And so for them, like letting good enough be enough, like that's a real thing. And
hmm
doing those small acts of kindness toward yourself is really important. Also, mindfulness and being aware of yourself and being aware of your psyche and really like knowing, okay, like, hey, today I have capacity or today I don't have capacity and really owning that too.
Yeah, and this is an important time for Virgo risings to recognize what's within them with the South Node in their sign of Virgo. So if someone was inspired by Sarah's what she's doing and you're a Virgo rising and you got something you
It's your
think other
time.
people can be helped by, put it out there because the Pisces clients are ready for it with the North Node on the other side of your chart. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
I launched my business during Gemini season.
Perfect. The sun going through your seventh house. You're just naturally in tune with the cosmos.
I mean, I'm a firm believer of like you learn things when you're supposed to, like they come to you when they're supposed to, kind of like what you and Christopher were talking about here recently. The asteroids are on.
You put it in your toolbox when you're ready
Yeah.
for it. Absolutely. And Libra.
So if Libra, they get this rap all the time of like they're the people pleasers and like they want balance and they want harmony. Like balance and harmony are always the words when you see Libra
Mhm.
rising. I think a better word for them or a better thing to think about with Libra rising is just connection. Like they want to be connectors. And so anxiety definitely pops up for them when there is conflict or if they're people pleasing too much and they've kind of fallen into the tendency and they're not resourced in that way. I think one of the best things the Libra rising can do for themselves is have honest conversations and have really firm, strong boundaries and knowing where they stand and just remembering for themselves that their needs matter just as much as everyone else's. And I think when they can kind of lean into that firmer stance, then it makes everything else easier.
Absolutely. And stop thinking about what other people are thinking all the time, which can
Oh,
be really
yes.
hard, really
Yeah.
hard. And recognizing that within themselves.
Yeah, I think about it a lot in my podcast. I talk about sometimes how my daughter is a Libra moon, which is a really beautiful, cool thing. Even at 3 years old, I'm always encouraging her, I'm like, take up space. Or like, what do you think about this? Because I'll ask her when we're laying down for bed, like, what's your favorite part of today? And she's like, what's your favorite part? And I'm like, no, you
That's
told me
so
yours
classic.
first.
That's classic Libra. Where do you want
Oh,
to go to
yes.
dinner? No, where do you want to go?
You want to go? And I'm like, no, you told me. And then I'll tell you my favorite part today.
Yeah. And where were we?
Scorpio.
Scorpio rising.
Oh,
And you
Scorpio
have a
rising.
little one with this rising sign. You get to see
Do.
it in action.
I have them everywhere. My husband's Scorpio rising, my daughter, my mother-in-law, so many of even like my massage therapist is Scorpio rising. When you're Scorpio rising, you inherently just move through the world with more depth and more intensity. For them, the stress really comes when they bottle up their emotions or they don't feel safe to be vulnerable. I think when you're Scorpio rising, therapy is the name of the game. Also having trusted outlets for those rawer emotions and having people that never view your intensity as a burden. Like if someone is like,
Mhm.
oh, you're too much, like I get that about my Aries moon sometimes. Then I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, you're not my human. And that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, absolutely. Really great. The thing that's great about Scorpio is they're the three different archetypes as well. And
Yeah.
people can think about, the feet and the only sign with it, the phoenix, the eagle, and the scorpion, and where they fall into that energy. I love the phoenix energy. At some point in a Scorpio rising's life, it feels like maybe everything's burnt down to the ground for order to be rebuilt, and honoring their ability to regenerate themselves.
What were you saying?
Sometimes
Yes.
people with strong Scorpio rising or strong Scorpio in their chart can really power through an illness, and almost feels like they can heal themselves.
Yeah, there's
For
so
that
much
energy.
healing energy and healing capabilities with Scorpio.
Mhm.
Sometimes I joke that I'm an honorary Scorpio, but I feel that in my life. Like I feel that Phoenix energy in my life. What I'm doing today is totally different than a year ago, totally different than 5 years ago, and I think that's really fun and really cool.
Yes, it is. And what about Sagittarius rising? That's you.
Oh, Sagittarius. Sagittarius brings the big picture vision. People always talk about Sagittarius as the explorer and the adventurer. And sometimes we get locked into that stereotype of travel, but I do love to travel. But it's not, people are always like, catch flights, not feelings. And I'm like, you can love to travel and not outrun your emotions and do your healing work and all the things. I think for me in particular, and part of what I identify so much with Sag rising is like, I get really stressed if I feel trapped. And not only trapped, but just like stifled. Like I feel like I'm not moving forward, if I'm not growing, I do have like all this inherent desire to find meaning in life and meaning in different things going on, which astrology is great for that. And I think another thing with Sag rising, just because I am even more familiar with it than the other signs, is being bored. Stress comes from being bored too. You like the movement and the momentum. And so self-care for me looks like new learning experiences. Like, how can I expand myself? Like, learning astrology is a new experience for me, and I'm learning something new all the time, and that is so cool. And that lights me up so much. And really, just if you're feeling bored or feeling stifled or trapped, reconnecting with that sense of possibility. I love thinking about the perspective of Sag rising. It's like, I can do anything, I can be anything. I got to find the next thing what lights me up.
That expansive nature
Yeah,
and the optimistic nature,
for sure.
that you can conquer anything. I love that. And Capricorn.
Oh, Capricorn. It's funny to think about the journey of the story through all the signs. Capricorn has to rein it back in a little bit after Sagittarius. They're much more naturally disciplined, responsible, serious minded. Those are the words they get. And I think for Capricorn rising, anxiety really comes from those high self expectations. They expect a lot of themselves, and other people expect a lot of them too. There becomes this fear of failure. When I meet a Capricorn rising, one of the first things I feel like I say to them, I'm like, rest without guilt. Like, rest is so incredibly important for your productivity, which I know is also incredibly important for
Mhm.
you. And really remembering to celebrate those small wins. And I also think they need those steady support systems, and they need to remember that they're not alone in the sense of like they don't have to carry the weight of the world. I'm thinking of a few Cap risings I know in particular, like they really feel like they carry the weight of the world on their
Mhm.
shoulder, but being able
Mhm.
to offload that on the people around you and be seen in that way is really important.
Yeah, there's a lot of responsibility in younger years, and things are supposed to lighten up with the Capricorn
Yeah.
rising as you get older.
Fun.
Yes, letting off
Yes.
some of the burdens, having some of the fun maybe you were denied as a child, or not denied, but you didn't have the opportunity to.
I didn't have the access to.
Yeah, it's a wonderful rising sign.
Mm.
And Aquarius rising.
I love Aquarius rising as well. My podcast co-host is Aquarius rising. Her chart is actually so impressive. She has 7 placements in Capricorn in her 12th house. So we're both 12th house girlies in that way. With Aquarius rising, they move through life with this sense of thinking of both individuality and community at the same time. Like, they're very unique individuals, but they're always thinking about the bigger collective as well, which I very much feel with her. I think as I've talked to people on Thread this summer, I've really spent a lot of time building my threads. I have a few thousand followers there. What I get into talking about with Aquarius risings all the time is they feel misunderstood or they feel alienated. Or someone said one time something along the lines of, it's the worst thing in the world for people to just view me as different all the time. And I'm like,
Mm.
well, that doesn't have to be a bad thing. Like, we can reframe this and rework this and relook at this.
Unique.
Unique, yes. And unique is great. We want unique. We don't want everybody to be the same. So Aquarius rising, like, number one, finding your people and,
Absolutely.
honing in on what you value and who those people are. But also, I think about this with my co-host as well, just embracing your quirks and embracing who you are unapologetically. I think that is wonderful for the mental health of Aquarius rising. Don't conform, don't be like anyone else, just be who you are. And that is wonderful. And I love that.
And I love with Aquarius rising when you're having a conversation with them and they're asking questions,
Yeah.
they really want to know.
My
Sometimes it can
co-host is
be,
wonderful for that. It's
yeah.
awesome.
So I find them so authentic with that.
Yes.
And last but not least,
Mm.
Pisces.
Pisces. I don't have a ton of Pisces risings in my life. I'm trying to collect some more. I feel like the
It's
best
one
way
of
to
the
be,
rarest rising signs, so that makes sense.
I feel like I do all this market research all the time. Like, oh, like what sign are you? And like adding to this database in my head. But Pisces rising, those are the ones I'm thinking of. They're sensitive, but also imaginative and
Mhm.
compassionate. I love the compassion of a Pisces rising, where they get into a state of overwhelm is when they're absorbing too much energy from other people and they have unclear boundaries or don't know how to hold those boundaries. Because I'd imagine Pisces risings as a bit of an absorber.
It's a
And so
sponge.
it is a
Hmm.
sponge. They just like soak it all right in. But for them, like any way that they can creatively express themselves is huge. Spiritual practices, I find a lot. Like of the Pisces risings, I know like 2 of them are human design coaches. They like looking at other different things. And really, I would say most importantly, it's just those healthy boundaries around empathy. I think that is huge for a Pisces rising.
being able to manage that. Have good energetic boundaries or cleansing,
Yes.
having ways to
All the way around.
clear the energy and tools. Pisces rising, that is really an absolute. Oh, well, that was so helpful. Is there anything else you want to share with people? Tell them how to find you.
I'm all the places. I'm at this Instagram account, which is Cosmic Group Chat Pod. And what I'll say about the podcast is we're actually about 20 episodes in. It is very much an astrology for beginners podcast. You don't have to know anything to listen. You don't have to be an
Mhm.
astrology expert. You don't have to know every piece of your chart. We tell you, like, hey, today we're going to look at moon signs. So all you need to do is pull up your chart, figure out what
Yeah,
your moon is, and then we'll tell you all about it, kind of like we did with the
yeah,
rising signs today.
yeah.
And on Threads, where I've been kind of accumulating a little bit of a following and community, I talk a lot about mental health and I talk a lot about the 12th house and different transits. And I'll literally just call out, like, hey, if you're an Aries rising, then today might look like this. And I think that's really helpful to people. How do you integrate it in your day to day? Outside of that, we've got Instagram, we've got Threads, we've got the podcast, and I do have a astrology slash mental health focused free newsletter as well, where I also do the same like 12 house call outs and do horoscopes and all the good stuff.
Oh, cool. And what is your website?
It is the link in my bio here.
Oh, link in
It's a
bio.
stand store.
Uh-huh.
My newsletter is called Cosmic Capacity, so you can get your weekly pep talk.
Oh, okay. I love
Yeah,
that. I'll have to follow you on Threads.
please do, please do. It's
Is it this handle?
yep.
Okay, I will do so. This has been such a joy and pleasure to talk to you. I will make it so that you can put this on your wall as well, make you a
Beautiful.
collaborator, and I'll cross post it to my YouTube so people can watch it there. So thank you so much for sharing, being so open about your own life as well
Oh
as
yeah.
sharing your astrology knowledge. It was very fun talking to you. Are you going to go to UAC next year, the astrology
I hope to.
conference?
I actually genuinely hope to go. I think that
Yeah.
would be so fun to be in community with other people that love it just as
Mhm.
much as I do. I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah, I'd love to see you there. We could meet in person.
That'd be awesome.
Where do you live?
I live in Kentucky,
I've
and
never
it's
been.
fun to figure out what does a spiritual or astrological community feel like here. Because when you
Mm,
think of Kentucky, that's not what you think of.
yeah, I think of
Where are you based
Bourbon.
out of? Oh yes, Bourbon.
I'm in California. I'm in Oakland, California.
Oh, cool. That's so fun.
Yeah,
Very different
yeah.
vibes.
Well, thanks so much for joining and take good care of yourself.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Oh, thank
you.
you. You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.